Combustion.
Whoa, 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 whoa. Been running the game with my team making plays. Talking 80, my G's, wanting jewels in this place. Surrounded by dogs, keep the quarterback safe. I'm the one with the plans, they gon' do what I say. The game is not over, we don't celebrate. In the end zone, we don't got no time in the wait. H-time run down, we don't premeditate. We just go and get to it, we got them on skates. If the game go into overtime, kicking the overdrive, we gon' be first at the finish line. Play looking full, but I finish mine, can I get second? We gon' line up like it's dinner time. We put in work till we get us a ring. Super Bowl season, we running the scene. H-time the home of the realest that breathe. Keep your face down when you talk to the king. What up, y'all? Welcome back to another episode of the H-Town Rundown. This is your boy AD, and I got my co-host in the building. We got Mike G and we got Auntie Swan. How's everybody doing this wonderful Wednesday afternoon?
Doing great. Wonderful. How you fellas are doing this evening?
Oh, we're swarming, and now that Jules isn't here, we can talk about the key topic: why Jalen Petrie needs to be re-signed.
Yeah, that's automatic. We ain't worried about that.
Just a few Texans notes. We here to talk about the Texans. They had a few scheduled visits. Caleb Johnson, running back from Iowa, came in to visit. As well as they met or are meeting with Quinshawn Judkins, running back from Ohio State University. There were a few others. Mike G, you have the list on hand?
I do not actually have it handy right now.
So they also had a virtual with Isaiah Bond. Yep. They did, of course, they've already met with Matthew Golden, who was a top 30 visit. If I'm not mistaken, an offensive tackle I just saw came through the line.
Just Carnley?
No, yeah, him, but it's another offensive tackle that just came through. Give me a second. From Connecticut.
Mm-hmm. We got receiver Kyle Williams as well.
Yeah, Kyle Williams, Chase Lunt. That just came through today. Offensive tackle 6'7", 303 from Connecticut. He came in for a visit as well, or has a scheduled visit as well. They also have a visit. Kentucky defensive back Zion Childress is participating in the local Texans Pro Day.
Mm-hmm. You got tight end Arroyo from Miami. Mm-hmm. And you also have an interesting one with TJ Sanders, defensive tackle out of South Carolina. So got a handful of names out there.
Yep. I'm trying to think if it's
and Charles Grant.
Charles Grant, of course, my favorite.
Yes, I love him.
And we got Michigan State center guard Luke Newman. Is visited with the Texans today as well. So of course, it's kind of interesting take. They kind of all over the place. But today we're going to be talking about the defense as well as the running back position and tight end position, which is the depth, as we do have two starters in those positions. So we will talk about it. And, the big news, not big news, but a big talking point was, like Mike G said, the Jalen Petrie extension. What are the Texans going to do with Jalen Petrie? It's about that time. Shout out Johnny. It's about that time, and Jalen Petrie is up for an extension. Do the Texans go and extend Jalen Petrie?
Absolutely.
Do they sit back?
Absolutely.
Wait.
He's part of your core.
Do they sit back and wait? And do they let him walk? Do they let him test the market and see what his market is?
I mean, we're not the Cowboys or the Bengals, so.
Again.
The only reason why I say that is they didn't do it with Stingley. They didn't do it with Nico. I think.
And Jalen Petrie ain't now one of them motherfuckers.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Can I? He is. Oh, I'm sorry. He is an important part of the defense, whether some fans like to admit it or not. There was a difference between when he was not on the field um, towards the end of the season. I understand folks say, well, I can replace him. Why go and attempt to replace where you don't have that need and replace and fix what you do have a need at? We just need him to stay healthy on the field because it seems like he found his niche, his fit this past season because he struggled in that first year with D'Amico and his defense, and I feel like he got a home now, in my opinion. I don't know if you feel that way, Mike G, or not, but I felt like he found his little niche, um, and to me, it worked. I know there was some numbers that were floated out there, and I don't want to um, borrow anybody's information and not give credit. So, Mike G, maybe you know who it was, but someone was throwing out there. It may have been Texas
It
Cap.
was Texan Cap. He put out a
I
valuation
want right,
of a 3-year, $30 million contract for
right.
Jalen Petrie, and I'm gonna go with
I'm
the
good with
shout
that.
out Big B. I'm gonna say this: I'm not paying $10 million a year for a niche. I'm
No, no,
not
no, no, no. I
paying.
didn't say no.
I'm
I didn't
not
say he. I
paying.
didn't know.
I'm not paying $10
You
million
ain't
for a
paying it,
specialty.
but
I'm
you
not
ain't paying
paying.
it.
I'm not paying.
I don't see when I say his niche. I don't mean like he is a gadget guy like niche. I'm saying this. I feel like he found
So
his
can he play
role.
anywhere? Can you play him more than one position?
Yes.
Yeah,
Hold
I can
up.
play. Hold on, I can play box. Hold
Where?
on, trust me. Do I prefer to keep things
Where?
in front of him? Yes. Do I prefer to keep him closer to line of scrimmage? I'm
Because
fine.
why? Why?
No, no, that's his strength. But here's the thing that oh, but here's the thing is
Yes.
everybody has their strengths and their weaknesses. It works. So I don't have a problem. Here's the thing: I drafted him. I've developed him. Why would I not extend him? I don't feel he's this major liability.
So
He's not Eric Murray out there. Okay, I'm sorry. This is the guy that
Eric
I.
Murray was actually pretty good.
Uh,
And how much did Eric Murray get paid?
I mean, it's Jacksonville that we're talking about.
But
So
how much did he get paid? I just want
was it
to
16 million over 3 years?
No, it was more than that.
22, whatever it was.
No, it was more than that.
He's their problem now. But I mean, he had one decent season for us, and the others, it felt like it was a hostage situation. We all know that.
Eric Murray did really well, and I think a lot of people
yep.
shit on him, and a lot of people give him a lot of flack. But Eric Murray played damn good for the Houston Texans, and he doesn't get a lot of credit. I know he gets like abused for not abused, but he gets talked about negatively for possession here, possession there. But overall, Eric Murray was one of the most reliable, healthy,
Okay.
consistent players on our defense. Period.
Okay.
And you can't
All
take that
right.
away from me. I know you
If
can't.
we're just talking about last year, okay.
Yeah.
But people can't. He has been hit
How
like
many years has he been in the league? Because I know he's been with us what about 4 or 5 years? Because
Yeah,
he
he's
was
like
O'Brien.
32.
Yeah,
so
I'm
he's been
sorry.
in the league since 2016. He's been in the league,
Well, goddamn, I hope
and
8 years.
but what I'm saying is that the thing about it as well is that he, outside of Houston, he has been like he was jumping around. He was with Kansas City for 2 years, and he was with Cleveland, and he was at Houston, and he's been with Houston, and he steadily improved every year, being in a consistent system. Question: how do you guys feel about the division this season with the thought of winning? I mean, it's check
Huh?
box check. I don't even question
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
division, I don't even we're beyond the talking about can we will we win a division. I think it's a foregone conclusion with the state of the other three teams in the division. But with Eric Murray, I do think that he steadily improved his play, and he was a consistent defensive back. First of all, and I think people get it confused. Eric Murray was a reserve, and
Right.
people crucified him as a starter when that wasn't his role to begin with on the team. And people also had a sour taste in their mouth because of the contract he signed when Bill O'Brien got here. That
Sure.
he
And
signed with Bill
well,
O'Brien.
we also had a problem when we re-signed him because folks wanted to move on. Here's my
Because
thing:
and the reason why folks wanted to move on Swan is because they felt like he didn't deserve the first contract that he signed with Bill O'Brien.
but
Oh,
we
That
also
was
okay.
the
did,
And
whole
those
that
yeah,
was the
folks,
whole point.
right. But come back and extend him. Folks was ready to move on because let's face it, you could have gotten better because you either could have drafted or you could have actually signed. So there were opportunities to do that, but that's neither here or there. Like you say, that's the Jags' problem now. That's not ours. But back to our player, Petrie. I don't see a reason why you would not. I don't see anything that showed that D'Amico does not value him. So if they're willing to waste money on Jimmy Ward, and we know he can't stay on the field, and we know he's old. Why would I not think you wouldn't resign, or extend rather, Petrie?
So this is the thing, and I think a lot of times us as fans, we put out what we as a franchise and a fan base would particularly want. Like Texans Cap put the valuation of him at 3 years, $30 million. We just saw the slot corner for the Buffalo Bills get a what was it a three was it 4 years, $76 million deal. So why wouldn't Jalen Petrie value himself in that range or even close to that range? And so, and again, Brandon said you don't have to pay Petrie yet. You don't again, I think it's
Right.
just under the assumption of fans that, oh, if the valuation is 3 years, 30 million, if we offer him that, he's automatically going to take it.
no, he might
And
not.
he and
He
that's
might not, but at the same time,
how
he
smart
wants
would
to
it
stay
be for
here.
him? Right, but at the end of the day, how smart would it be for Jalen Petrie to take this a contract of $30 million, $10 million a year, when he can go out in the market and get 16, 17, $18 million, even
Okay,
though he wants how much so do you want to be home that you're willing to take a $6 to $7 million pay cut per year, or you're willing to lose out if you over 3 years you're willing to lose out over 18 to $21 million. Like how feasible would it be? Because you gotta sometimes we gotta look at it from a player's perspective
Sure.
and not just a fans and organization perspective, because the organization is always going to come undercut.
Yeah.
And I'm just speaking in
or they
neutral
could
ground
insinuate it. Right. I'm saying
because
no, but I'm saying there are ways you can work the contract that it works in his favor. You put
and
incentives in it that
right.
make it where he can get to the 17, 18, because based on game day bonuses and
How
so forth.
so how does that
He's had some
so
injuries too, so that's part of it.
yeah, so how you I mean any contract he gets is going to be very, very incentive based. Even the 3 year $30 million contract that Texas Cap put out there was very incentive based.
Okay.
So again, Brandon said people get extended the week before free agency starts sometimes. Right.
But
And that can happen too. I mean, we look at Brevin Jordan got extended towards the end of the season. Jimmy Ward got extended the early middle of the season. Like Nick Casario is good for doing things like that. Um
but
and
yeah,
we can see that, but at the end of the day, it's from a player's perspective, from an organization perspective, how smart would it be for Petrie to miss out on that type of money when it's really his first payday as well? um Again, I say the players that came before CJ Stroud, outside of Derek Stingley and Nico Collins, put in a conundrum because it's hard to value what you're going to do when it comes to paying CJ Stroud. When I speak about that, what I'm saying is that when you sign these players to these extensions, and you go, and which is why the Schultz contract looks horrible now, and we'll talk about that in a little bit
It looks
because
all because he was bad, not because of the
right.
contract.
Well, I mean, a lot of people didn't think he deserved that contract after the year he had with us anyway. So again, I go on to the point of the reason why it's hard to value these guys, because if you're paying, let's say let's say you freaking Petrie gets that close to that contract that the slot, I can't remember his name, the slot corner from Buffalo. They got the $76 million contract. Let's say that Petrie tops that and gets 80 over 4 years. Now you're saying, in essence, basically just pure contract, $20 million a year.
Are you talking about Benford?
Yeah.
He's
He
an
got
outside corner.
no, they said he was a slot corner. Well, that's what
I've
I heard.
I've watched plenty of their games. He's an
Okay.
outside corner. I'm not saying he can't play slot, but yeah, he's
Yeah, so he said, "What do you mean you giving me linebacker money?" Which is basically what their contract is linebacker money. I say get a deal done for Jalen before the draft. A lot of people have high hopes in Jalen. Again, Mike brought up the point, never been healthy a year,
Okay, neither
regardless.
has Nico.
So Nico's done more.
No, but he
than
he
Petrie.
mentioned health. I'm just speaking on he mentioned health.
So I think Nico has proved, like, so this is the thing.
No, what
Nico's
is
been
what?
hurt, but even when Nico has played, Nico has been proven himself to be at least a top 10 in his position.
Okay, okay.
mm-hmm.
So we gonna do the same thing.
Jalen Petrie is not top 10 of anything.
Okay, so I'm gonna go back to
Of
if we could
anything.
So let's rewind because I think we have a little bit of revisionist history here.
Oh
Because
yeah.
last year, this time,
He was
Mhm.
ass.
when there was discussions regarding extending Nico, very few, and I mean it was very, very few, that wanted to extend him. Folks said it was 1 year,
Mm-hmm.
let's play it out, and we revisited, be doing this right now, which we be paying way above 24 million right now. So same thing with Stingley. This was his first year where he did play the whole year. We paid him. It appears as though
Oh, yeah.
if you're part of the core, they're gonna pay early because they're not trying to get into this, you know, bidding thing. If I really want you, if I feel like you're part of it, I think they're going to extend him. I think Petrie wants to be here. I think they'll find that middle ground. I think you're going to have folks that are going to be upset that say they paid him too much because I think it is going to be a little bit more than that. But like I said, it's put the incentives in there. Hell, do the Casario special. You know, 3 years, two guarantee you go back out there again and prove it to us. Or because Brevin Jordan was hurt, he did an additional year so he could, come back and prove himself. But I don't know. I don't have a problem extending him. I
So
don't.
yeah, and I go back to the point you're making about the very few people wanted to extend him. I don't think that people did not want to extend him. I think that it gets lost in the conversation of people saying put a pause on it.
The same thing.
I think it's not. It's not the same thing. The same thing is saying I don't want Nico extended. I don't like let him walk.
I,
That's different than saying not right now. That's the difference. That's a different conversation than saying I wouldn't mind paying, or I would pay Nico. I just wouldn't do it right now. And that's the difference between saying I wouldn't pay Nico at all, let him walk. That's the difference.
I don't think folks are saying don't pay uh Jalen at all. I think you have some that are just
People
like
are saying don't pay Jalen. People are
there are
saying,
some. They're same
Yeah,
folks saying the same thing for
and
last year.
some of those
Same
people
folks for
are on
last
this
year.
podcast.
yeah, absolutely. I'm saying let him walk because
Okay, that's
let me
one
say
person, but
this.
I'm saying is you have the same situation. You have those that are less keep Petrie, but I want it at a good value, and then there are those let him play it out, and then we revisit this next year. I think it's a small group that's saying uh just let him walk, or we just can just replace him.
Let's not have revisionist history also about Petrie's impact last year, because we watch the film every week, right? All
Yeah, no,
22.
I'm not taking that away.
And I mean, let's keep it a buck here. Petrie was one of the most valuable players on this team when he was healthy last year. And when he got hurt, what was our reaction? What was everybody's reaction? Uh-oh. Yeah, exactly.
So,
And we saw it on the field, right?
And then to say, okay, well, I'll just go in the draft and go get a guy. Okay.
Other than a couple of guys like Daniil Hunter and Will Anderson, like this guy consistently swarmed. He embraced
Aziz
that.
didn't swarm?
Huh?
Yeah.
Aziz didn't swarm? Dave Stingley didn't swarm?
Of course he did. Okay, yeah, Stingley too.
Kamara Lassiter didn't swarm?
Yes.
Caleb
But
Bullock didn't swarm?
did Petrie not embody that?
I can go about the whole defense, Mike.
Yeah. Well,
Holy Father Kasi didn't swarm.
Of course. Yeah, we gotta get him in there too.
Mario Edwards didn't swarm before PEDs.
So okay, but hold up.
Hold on. Tim Sutter didn't swarm.
Petrie truly swarmed, and you know it though, right?
Tell me what happened to the defense when he got hurt.
Yeah, we saw it.
So let me, and I will say this as well because I want to talk about Big B's point. Big B saying bringing up Nico and Sting hurts the Petrie argument. They got paid after showing they are elite at their position, which is what I just said. That Nico Collins and Stingley are top 5, top 10 in their positions respectively. Jalen Petrie is not top nothing in nothing. And I understand the importance of his importance to this defense. But how important would Stingley be if Christian Harris never gets hurt?
You mean Petrie?
No.
But we don't know.
If Christian Harris never gets hurt, how much is Petrie's effectiveness in play if Christian Harris never gets hurt?
I think he's
I don't know, but I know he did get hurt.
Because when Christian Harris was hurt the year before, they were just searching for places to play Petrie.
I think Petrie getting comfortable, but here's my thing is,
he got comfortable because of Christian Harris's injury.
Okay, here's the thing is, I don't know what it would have been like with Christian Harris playing. I know what he looked
been less of Petrie. I can guarantee that.
But here's the fact is,
would have been a
he
lot
did
more
get injured. We did see it, and we felt the impact when he went down. We also knew we were. So my thing is, as long as, and I know we could move on because we'll be doing this all night. It's simple. If he is part of the core and they want to extend him, I have no problem. If they don't want to extend him or make him play it out, I'm good that way too. So in D'Amico and in Nick Caserio, I trust. So either way, that's just me.
I believe Petrie injury hurt us because Ward was injured.
Man, Ward didn't play the full season his whole career.
But I'm saying he has a point. Because Big B has a point. If Jimmy Ward, I'll put it back up there. If Jimmy Ward, I understand he's always hurt, and I know Jules hates him forever. But if Jimmy Ward is healthy, how much less of an impact? Because Jimmy Ward, for the game or two that he replaced Petrie, it was almost like he really wasn't missing a beat.
Oh hell no, that ain't funny.
He wasn't bad, but
he was a hair length a hair follicle
No, more than that.
length. Hell no. Hell no.
Okay. Okay. We'll agree to disagree. I'm not
Cause
gonna sit here
okay,
and crap on Petrie
but
like the dude didn't make contributions and wasn't vital on the
I'm not
defense.
saying
There
he's
were some
not.
plays he made
So
that
so
nobody else was on that defense was going to make.
so and I give him that. My
And
thing
you
is
need to have and you need to be able to do that.
this is my point. My point is not trying to devalue Petrie. My point is not for people not to devalue Jimmy Ward in that sense. That like and that when I bring up the Jimmy Ward and I brought up that point, my point was not to devalue Petrie. My point was everybody else devaluing Jimmy Ward, and my point is that Petrie is replaceable. I think Big B, again at the end of his last comment said, draft a nickel and let Petrie prove himself. What is the
Prove
Texans'
what?
motto? What is the Texans that we have known, especially when D'Amico Ryans has gotten here? The Texans are about proving yourself and proving your worth.
I
Sure.
don't think it's the fact that he hasn't
They,
proven himself. I think he just can't stay. He hadn't stayed on the field because he was proving himself last
but
year.
I'm saying that's the point. Prove that you can stay healthy, or prove that you can play a majority of the games. Prove that you can be there when we need you. Prove that you, like, at the end of the day, Nico Collins has been hurt the last 2 years, correct?
At least.
He's been hurt
Yeah.
his whole career.
Fine. Where was Nico Collins in the playoffs? Standing right there,
Played.
Nick, standing right
Yeah.
there playing, right?
Right.
Okay. Derek Stingley has been injured every year except last year.
Right.
Where was Derek Stingley in the playoffs? Both
He was
years.
there.
He was
Yeah.
there, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Justin
okay.
Herbert still has nightmares.
Right. So again, Jalen Petrie was not there.
Now, if he was there,
Now
was
hold on.
Travis Kelce Nukas?
No,
If Christian Harris is there,
no, that's not
Well,
it.
so now you like the Bama linebackers.
Can we not keep going back to here because the conversation
hold on,
is
and I
Petrie.
agree. Prove he can be healthy and continue playing well. There's not going to be and again, I go back to the beginning of the conversation. Then we can move on to the defensive side of the football because we're already on that side. Is that again? We're speaking from a fan and organizational viewpoint rather than a player.
Mhm.
If I'm Jalen Petrie and the Texans come with that offer that Texans cap brought to the table, and I see what the market is and with the salary cap steady going up, I'm going to look at you and say, you know what? I'm going to hold off because I know I'm worth more than this.
And then, so
And
you're
I'm
saying
going,
basically you're willing to move, you're willing to go somewhere else because he has to.
yes,
Okay, but he's trying to stay here. So you know you're gonna have to find a middle ground because you got two guys that are getting paid next year automatically. So
so again, he wants to stay here, but again, it's his first payday. There's no way in hell if Jalen Petrie has a similar performance and plays a full season, if he has a similar performance to last year and plays a full season, there's no way in hell he's gonna sit up there and say, I'm gonna take $10 million a year. There's no, like, I don't, even if the Texans go up $2 or $3 million, Jalen Petrie will garner a contract. Somebody will pay Jalen Petrie 16, 17, 18 million dollars a year. And I don't, with the market the way it's going, the price of defensive backs, all the positions outside of quarterback and everything is going up. We just saw,
safety is still where it is. You got to be a top
Yeah,
notch
safety
safety.
is
how
lower.
much did Xavier Howard get? Not Xavier, don't
Is
go
that?
what's his name? No, the Dolphin safety.
Are you talking about
Oh.
Howard? Okay, but he's
Not
not on that
Howard.
level.
No, you talking about
Holland.
thank
Javon
you,
Holland. How much did Javon? And I know Petrie's not on that level. How much did Javon Holland get?
I don't know. What I'm saying is
45.3 fit 3 years, so 15 million.
Right. Hey, Vaughn.
That's 15. So Petrie at 12 and a half.
I
Is
think he
that
would do to
crazy?
stay here. And then you got to think about, hey, there's no state tax here and whatever. My thing is, if and I'm just going by how he expressed his interest to stay here. He said this is his city, this is his home. He's trying to stay
From
here.
Stafford. Yeah,
So
but
so my thing is that if they want to pay him 12.5 million, I'm good with that.
again, we are
Um,
saying this from an organization and a fan base.
Is that
And I'm
not
telling
But
you
what
now,
we do? Is that not what we do in here?
okay, but if that's the offer and he
I'm
takes
also
it, are
looking at,
you upset?
yes,
That I
Why?
think that's the whole thing, that you don't
yes.
want him, so
I
you're
mean, you've already
leaning.
said the cap ain't real, and
I'm
you can
saying
make it work.
I'm
So,
saying so this is the thing. And the point I was trying to make beforehand
mhm.
is that it sucks for the players that came before CJ and Will Anderson. Because now the Texans have to make a decision. Do we keep this guy? Like, are we willing to be tied to this guy, whoever we sign, whoever it is, for the next
3 years.
7? No, let me finish. For the next 7 6 7 years. And the
Why
reason
the
why
six
I
seven?
say that, and the reason I'm getting there, y'all got to be patient. Y'all got to be
I,
patient and follow the train. The reason why I say that is because guess what's going to happen when it's time to pay CJ and Will Anderson? You're going to have to open up and restructure all of these contracts and push these voids, extend them. Basically, you're going to be tied to these players like Derek Stingley. No problem being tied to Derek Stingley for 6 7 8 years. Have
right.
no problem with that. Nico Collins, no problem being tied with Nico Collins for 6 7 8 years. Are you willing? Are you really willing to be tied to Jalen Petrie for the next 6 7 years? Because I guarantee you, Derek Stingley's contract is getting restructured. Nico Collins' contract is getting restructured, as it already has this year. Then you're going to go down the list of whoever else you sign after that. All of these players going to get restructured? Because you're not talking about just paying CJ Stroud $60+ million. You're talking about also paying Will Anderson Jr. $40 million. So you're talking about over $100 million that you're going to have to pay for two players. And I understand the cap is not real, and it's not. And I agree with that point. But my point also is, like I just said, are you willing to tie yourself to these players for an extended period of time outside of, oh, I'm just signing him for 3 years? Because when you sign a Jalen Petrie to a 3-year contract, you're not signing him to a 3-year contract. You're
Yes, you
signing
are.
him to a 6-year contract
No,
or
you're
a
not.
7-year
No, you're
Swan.
not.
When you
But you're
restructure
not.
the contract,
Who says they're
you're
going to restructure?
but you're missing. I think you're missing my point when I say tied to a player.
You're
When I
thinking
say
beyond 3 years. And his thing
yes,
is, this is no, but
because
here's
you
the thing.
are.
You're not.
Because you think
Casario,
because
no, Casario's
Swan,
made it
you're
perfectly
looking,
clear.
Swan, listen to me. You're looking at him physically, him as a
No,
physical person.
I'm looking at it
I'm
from a
looking at
contract.
it money wise.
Me
If
too.
you restructure his contract, when you push that money down, that money becomes what? Dead cap money.
Right. And I have to say two things. One,
That is my point.
no, I'll say this, but what you're missing is one, Casario doesn't look at anything beyond 3 years. So my thing is, whether you were to want to restructure, that would be based on if you think he's going to be here beyond 3 years. Because with the timing from between now and the next 3 years, you might have drafted his replacement. So it's a mute point. Teams do re-sign players
It's not a
for a
mute
short period of
point.
time and let them go.
Swan,
Number two, hold up.
Swan, go ahead, because I'm about to counterpoint.
The second part is the dead cap. Casario doesn't really care. I'm going to say care, but he has no problem taking on dead cap. And part of that is that we traded Laramie Thompson, so you don't have that big old contract. You we don't even know what they're gonna have with what's his name next year. Titus Howard. Does he get extended next year, or do we let him walk? Then we
He's
let
gonna be in
Shaq
this.
Mason. We let Shaq Mason go, and on June 2nd, what is it? 9 million, 8 million, something like that. gets added back into the cap, hey, there you go. That's part of your money for what's his name. There's ways to manipulate and play with it. I'm not looking at Petrie beyond 3 years. Now,
Oh,
if you define him in the next 2 years, if he has shown that he is still part of that core, and when you go to restructure to create cap or whatever the case may be, and you do it, great, wonderful. But guess what? Let's say, for instance, it turns out, you know what? I'm ready to move on. Guess what?
I think you missed my point again. The point. So I understand your point about sticking to a player for 3 years. My point is that if you extend him, you're going to have to restructure.
Why?
You're
That's what
going
you're.
to have
This is what
to.
you're not helping me understand. Where's the rule that says if I
Where,
extend this
so
player,
where so
I'm talking about
where's
this player,
again?
this
Where's
player.
the Swan? Anybody making double digit in the contract, millions of dollars per year, their contract needs to be restructured because you're not just
Not
paying CJ
everybody.
Stroud. Swan, who else are you paying on the team other than Jay? If you extend Jalen Petrie, who else are you paying? Who else are you paying on this team?
Okay, I'm talking about pay.
Where's the money? Like I think you're missing my point. Where is the money going to come from?
Whoever is on the team, because there'll be other players on the contract that you could restructure. Why
Who?
does he have to be?
Swan, who on this team? Again, look at the roster. Look at even if you bring in a guy, who are you going to restructure?
Okay, there's Aziz that's on this team. There is
Swan,
actually a
we
Hunter.
just
No, hold
restructured.
on, wait, hold on. We huh? You can
Autry's
restructure for him.
Autry's going to retire.
No, I didn't say Archer. I said Hunter.
We
I
just
mean,
restructured Hunter.
and you can again.
Swan, you still missing my point.
You looking?
None of these players are worth $100 million. You're going to have to restructure damn near your whole team.
I
Like
disagree with
literally.
that. Have you looked at the salary cap for the next few years?
Nobody
Because I'm
knows what
looking
the
on here.
salary. Nobody knows what the salary cap is going to
No,
be the
no, I'm
next
saying
year.
is right now. No, you can look and see what it is, and you can see how
That's
many
based
folks that
on
are
this
free.
year.
No, if you looking in the
You know, with
future,
the tariffs and everything, the salary cap may dip. You know, I'm just playing. I'm just
okay. Anyway,
hold on. What core? Our core is CJ, Will Anderson Jr., Sting, and Nico. These other guys can be replaced via draft or free agency unless they take a team-friendly deal, which isn't advisable by the PA and agents.
okay.
Players
I mean, I'll be
Association.
honest with you. Technically, except for CJ, everybody can be replaced. Yeah, I'm sorry.
We ain't
We
replacing
and
him.
we no. What I'm saying is
We
we've
ain't
been through
replacing
this
him.
as an organization. You can replace a quarterback. You can replace the DN. The only thing that is hard for in the NFL is to find the franchise quarterback. That is the only position that is most difficult to replace.
Burn
But
Sam.
everybody else now are because somebody say, well, what? I'm sorry.
Let me say, yikes! Only $52 million in the cap next year.
Right, 27. No, considering we're talking about a 3-year contract. So when his kicks in,
I
then
understand, but are we paying?
27.
Are we keeping? So we not. So let's go. Let's say this: C.J. Gardner Johnson is on a prove-it contract,
Mm-hmm,
correct?
mm-hmm.
If C.J. Gardner Johnson outperforms Jalen Petrie, are you going to let C.J. Gardner Johnson walk?
No,
Why are we committed to mediocrity? Why
but
can't
I'm
we
saying
have an
no,
embarrassment of riches
no. What?
like that?
I'm sorry.
Where
I'm
we
trying to
are the
understand. I'm sorry. I'm trying to understand why I can't do like Philly does. I mean, because they have no problem
Well,
keeping multiple players and paying them, and they paying the quarterback, running back, and all that.
absolutely.
So it can be done. You
But
just got to be
look who
physically. You
they're
got to
paying. But look who they're paying. Look
everybody
who
damn near. It's
they're
not the
not
point.
paying.
Money is
They're not
money.
paying everybody.
No, what I'm saying is they're paying more than what we're paying So my thing is, Jalen Petrie should not prevent you from still being able to build your team and stay top in your division and compete for championship. I don't see how that one contract is going to derail us. And to me, you got a 3-year period to do that. And when he gets to year 2 of that contract, you sit back and you assess, have you seen what you think you need to see from him? Do I need to extend him with a year left? Or do I let him play it out? Or do I trade him? I don't know. But initially, for me, my thinking is you extend him, give him the 3 years. He would be cheaper now than if you quote unquote let me prove it again or let him prove it in your case that he deserves it. And then next year we're looking at damn, now we're competing with
So
everybody else. Whereas we could get him knowing he wanted to stay here, work it out, make it work, and it is what it is.
since we talking about Philly, and we really got to move on because we've been on
Mhm.
this topic way too long. Could we have a archetype of Philadelphia where we do what Philly did? Philly let C.J. Gardner Johnson go. They let him
After how
go.
many years?
They let him go after his rookie contract.
Yeah, and then they brought
No,
him
no, no.
back.
And they brought him back because no, hold up. Yes,
No,
because they did.
listen to you. Gotta listen to what I'm saying.
They
Uh-huh.
didn't
Let's
want
be
to let
like
him go.
Philly. Let's be
No,
like Philly.
no, no. But
Let
here's the
him
difference
go.
was no, no.
Then
Hold
bring
up. The
him back.
reason why, because I remember it. I'll be in spaces with folks, but anyway, uh, they wanted to bring him back. They didn't let him walk to walk. He thought he could get a little bit more money, and he took a little bit up there to Detroit, and then you realize, you know what? It ain't as great as I thought it was.
So
And they had a
CJ,
nice reunion. The
right.
problem is, but I'm saying is,
So again, CJ. So what you're saying is that C.J. Gardner Johnson went and got paid, right? Because Philly wasn't going
no,
to pay him what he got
one
paid
year.
in
No,
Detroit.
no.
Philly,
Mm.
but again, regardless of how many
But it
years,
does
whatever,
because you came back the following year. So obviously you realize,
Philly let him go because they weren't willing to pay him what Detroit paid him, correct?
correct.
Yeah.
Okay, then. That applies for the same rule that we just talking
Yeah,
about.
but the difference is that if I'm saying is, why not? But everybody corrected the quote unquote mistake. They corrected theirs, gave him what he wanted. He realized, hey, grass ain't green on as it is over there. So you're back. My thing is, why even take that chance? If you think that guy is vital to your defense, he plays a role, he's a contributor, a good contributor, then you take care of it before you wait to see, oh, let's see if he balls out. And now we bidding against everybody else. When I could have locked him in early, let him know, you know what? We believe in you. We drafted you. We developed you. Let's play this shit out.
To put a bow on this topic, though, I do want to point out that we got a bell to ass, literally,
Mhm.
defender with C.J. Garner Johnson.
Mm,
Is at the Super Bowl parade with that,
mm.
and the last three teams or last 3 seasons, he was on a team that made it to the conference
Championship.
championship game.
Yeah.
So hey, I'm looking forward to that.
Give
Hey,
me that all
Justin,
day.
Justin Watson. Hold on,
Uh,
Justin Watson too now. I know
so
it's offense, but hey, it got
speaking
good look on both sides.
speaking about defense, and I know it's when we talking about defensive prospects in the draft. And before y'all go ahead and like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. Y'all see the banner right here. Go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe, hit that notification bell so you don't miss an episode of the H Time Rundown. But going into the defensive prospects, he said good teams don't pay everybody. The draft is there for a reason. Again, I will say this that defensive prospects are not very talked about. They're talked about, but not nearly as much as they should be talked about for the Houston Texans. I think a lot of people are so uber focused on the offensive side of the football that they're not haven't been really talking about the defensive prospects as much.
Mhm.
But there's a world where the Texans take multiple defensive players in this draft.
There is.
There's a
Mhm.
world that the Texans could take if they stay at 25. They can take a defensive player at 25.
Mhm.
I think a lot of people are very, very dismissive when it comes to defensive prospects in the draft for the Texans, but there's some damn good prospects out there, especially at the defensive tackle position.
Mhm. And why
Which
is
I
it
feel
Derek
like,
Harmon, AD?
look, hey, I'm getting there. Um, there's a lot of defensive tackles, which I feel like is still a need on this team. A lot of people, even our boy Jules, wants a certified playmaker at the defensive tackle position. What we've noticed is that the Texans have turned lemons into lemon juice when it comes to the defensive tackle position. I know lemon. See how I said it that way though? Not lemonade, lemon juice.
I mean,
Um,
yeah, that sounds like it's underwhelming. A
it's
little bitter.
yeah, but it serves its purpose,
Mhm.
and that you're able to, make do with what you have,
Mhm.
rather than go ahead and get guys who can legit change the game
Yeah.
at the defensive tackle position. Um,
Rather than
like
pay for a Chris Jones or
yeah,
that caliber of a
you get your
player.
own Chris Jones,
Yeah.
and I think that is. And Bradley said we need a DT and DN for sure. I'm not sure about defensive end. Because they did bring in the guy from Chicago. I forgot his name. Taylor. As well. Mike, you broke up a little bit.
No.
What happened?
I hadn't moved, so I don't know.
Oh, I think his name was Taylor or
Yeah.
Trailer.
Bill Taylor brought in.
They
Obviously,
brought back Nick Barnett. You
right.
still have what's this guy from Cancer Survivor? Dylan Horton.
Dylan Horton.
Mhm.
You still had Darrell Taylor. That's his name. You still have all of these things, D ends. I'm not too keen on defensive end. Defensive tackle for sure.
Mhm.
Brandon said they've interviewed defensive tackle, defensive end, and cornerbacks. Corner is another.
Yeah.
Corner is another that you can look at and say, let me draft. Do I draft a Maxwell Harrison in the second round? If he falls to 58 and they take Maxwell Harrison, are you upset about that
I'm
pick?
confused.
I am too. Depends on who
So,
you take at one. I mean, at
so if
25.
I take Maxwell Harrison, guess what that opens up the door for? Me to move Kamari Lassiter.
Why? Why do I need to move Kamari?
Why?
I mean,
He's versatile, right? He can play. He
right.
can
I'm
play.
saying,
Is,
listen,
man. You can ball out on the
if I'm
outside
not, I
too.
mean, no, I'm
He
saying
can
is I
play.
can.
I think
No, it's the way
Kamari
you
Lassiter
said
can
it.
succeed wherever he is. He's a
Right,
dog. He can succeed in the slot. He can
Mhm.
succeed outside. Hell, you can play him anywhere. He's going to make a play. He's
no,
that type
Put
of.
him at D tackle. Let's
I
see.
agree with you. That's the way you said it. Oh, we
Listen,
can move him. I'm like, I mean,
yeah.
that's a
Because
plus.
if you draft a Maxwell Harrison and Maxwell Harrison proves that he is damn good outside, then why not say, okay, we can
To
move
me,
Kamari. But the point I'm trying to make is that you can see outside of safety, I would say you can see the Texans even linebacker make a draft pick at linebacker.
not
Um
no first, not in the
no,
first
Yeah, at
no,
round.
some
no,
point in the
no,
draft.
no. I'm
Yeah.
not I'm saying in totality. I'm not
Yeah.
saying specifically for the first, second round. I
Right.
specifically said defensive tackle or say defensive tackle or corner, and I wouldn't be surprised. We were just
I
sitting here
would.
last year watching this draft live and was like, what the hell are they doing drafting Kamari Lassiter at 42?
No, 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 it wasn't.
Because
No, you do.
going into the draft, Nick Caserio has done what he's always done and what he did this year.
No, okay.
He creates it where you're not needing a certain position.
Right.
So you're able to
No, you
draft.
did. No, everyone knew they were taking a corner in the second round. It was what corner? Folks thought it was going to be
We
Kool-Aid.
knew it was a definite possibility. We
Right.
did not expect
We
Lassiter.
didn't know for sure.
Folks felt no. We had two picks in the second round last year, And most folks felt comfortable one of those two in the second round was going to be a corner because that was a definite need after only signing Akuda
We
and
sure.
Henderson. Yes.
We sure.
Yes.
No.
Folks felt comfortable. Yes, it was because folks said, guess what? If
I
Kool-Aid
don't.
is there, okay.
I don't
Bye.
think. I don't think it's a. I don't necessarily think that they drafted for need. I honestly think they drafted the best player available.
They
Well,
drafted need.
the savvy teams do both, where it's like,
Right.
hey, this is, the Chiefs aren't going to take Shador Sanders if he's there at 32.
You're
They're going to
taking your
take
need the
amongst,
best player.
yeah, amongst your board and what you
But the
have
Chiefs
as a
are the
need.
type of team. But the Chiefs are the type of team that would take Shadur Sanders at 31. Mike, come on.
No, they wouldn't.
They-
No, they wouldn't. They
yes,
have too
the
many.
hell they would.
No, they
yes,
would
the hell
not.
they would.
No,
That's
they
the
would
The
not.
point
Not next
being,
year.
you
No,
match
they
it
wouldn't.
up
point
where
is.
it's a
Because of their
whether it's a
O-line
pressing need
issues.
or a need that could happen in the
You're
next
not
couple of
talking-
years
just-
in the draft board.
yeah. So,
That,
but the
they would not take no at 32.
So again, the Texans drafted a offensive tackle in the second round as well,
Mm-hmm.
and because he was the best player available. The
We'll disagree.
going into this season, outside of injuries, do we even see Blake Fisher play? If you don't have the injuries of Titus Howard, you don't have the injuries inside, everybody's healthy, and you don't have to do all this craziness that they did. Everybody's playing okay. Scenario. I know it's a lot of ifs on it, but
And here's the thing is
and the
that
point is, I don't think they drafted Blake Fisher saying, "Oh, we know we need to draft him because he's got to play." And
yeah, I do.
same thing with, I don't think so.
And here's my reason why.
Because
have
if
to
that was
look
the
at
case, then he would have been a starter.
No, his thing is
That was the case, he would have
the
been a
thing.
starter.
Not necessarily. You saw what happened the previous year, where you went down to third and fourth string guys, and you're out there scrambling. Titus
That
Howard hadn't played between Titus Howard and Laramie Thompson.
How we get on
They're either
offense?
starting off. I'm just saying no, because you went to the Blake Fisher thing, and
But
I'm saying
but I'm saying that. But I'm saying like that. That's kind of.
okay.
I'm just using that as an example of best player available.
But I'm
And
saying is,
I didn't want to get into the weeds because at the end of the day, I honestly believe that at 42 and what was it, 57 that we picked,
yeah,
Blake
57,
Fisher,
56, something like
at
that.
42 and 57, those two players were the best player on available.
But I think they were also looking at they knew both of those guys were not going to be the future, and you needed to also.
I don't think you draft. I don't think you go into the draft.
I think you
And
did.
I don't.
And they were right.
But again, I'm saying I said I don't think that they went into the draft saying we got to take a corner with one of these 2 second-round picks.
Hold on. Yeah, they had Derek Stingley. That was it. You didn't have nothing else after the Derek Stingley.
Swan, nobody knows what any of these players would have been because you could have drafted Kamari Lassiter at 42, and if he didn't work out, now what are you saying? What if the roles were reversed and Kamari Lassiter did not work out, but Jeff Okudah and CJ Henderson were actually players on this team?
Folks
Now what is the logic and what is the thinking behind it?
Guess what? You know what it is? Then we're deeper.
But Swan,
then we're deeper.
Say it's good. How are you deeper when you're saying Kamari Lassiter was ass or wasn't a factor at all? How are you deeper? So my point being is that it's great to come up with these notions as revisionist history because of what we saw play out during the year. We're talking about bring yourself back to that moment. In that moment, it was like, okay, we were talking about corner before we signed Jeff Okudah, before we signed CJ Henderson. They went in from an outside perspective looking in. The Texans said, you know what? We know we need a second corner. We're going to take two guys who were drafted in the top 10 the last 2 or 3 years, even though they had injuries and they had whatever. We're talking about corner number 2. we're going to put our money, and they did between both
They
of them. They paid, what was it? I think 7, 8, 9, damn near $10 million
right.
for a cornerback too, for it not to work out. And you can't sit up here and say, I'm putting that much money on those
Yes, I
guys
can.
and in their position and saying, no, I'm just going to rely on the second round pick.
No, you sign at a free agency, you put them in camp, you let them battle it out. But you also knew you were only signing them for this season, and you hoped maybe you get something out of one or the other. But there was nothing that said Jeff Okuda, because anybody who's watched them, there was nothing left really in that tank. You was really hanging on, damn, low risk, high reward, possibly. But nobody was believing those two dudes going into camp. So when we looked at the draft, yes, you was looking at corner. Now, Fisher was the surprise because I expected to take one a little bit later on, but not that early. So when they did, that told me right there, somebody's not going to be here next year, or they don't trust that both of them can stay healthy. That's what I saw. That's not revisionist history for me. And based on conversations folks was having last year, folks kept saying we needed corner, corner, corner. And most thought it was gonna be
And
Kool-Aid.
I think a lot of that conversation about corner happened because I think people don't realize too that the CJ Henderson and Jeff Okuda signings happened later in free agency compared to the first week in free agency and the first couple of weeks and before the pre-draft process. Soon as the season was over, I think a lot of people were harping on corner, 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 and I think it died down considerably after the signing of Jeff Okuda and CJ Henderson. But to that point, I do think the Texans have a very, very good chance of drafting a cornerback in this draft.
I,
Um,
I
and
see that, but I don't think the first 2 rounds. I
and
don't even think the first 3 rounds.
they are intriguing names. The
Mhm.
guy from East Carolina, um,
Yeah,
Ravel.
yeah, I think it's gonna be a second rounder.
Again, could he be a guy that the Texans take in the second round? They got picks. Do they trade up to get another guy in the second round?
No,
Again, Maxwell Harrison, you got Trey Amos from Ole Miss. These are guys that are in this second, third round range that could potentially the Texans could take them. We're saying no now, and it's not a definite because if they do take them, now what are we saying? So
I,
we
I'm not
can't
saying
sit up
it's
here.
impossible. I'm just saying it's not.
I know. And that's the whole point is that we have to leave the door open and we have to talk about these things. We can't just sit up here and say no, no, no. We have to
okay.
sit
I
up here
thought that's
and say
opinion.
there's a
I'm saying this.
possibility.
Can it happen? Yes. You're asking, do I think they will? No, that's what I'm saying. It's not that they will or won't. I'm saying based on what I've seen from them, I don't think they will, based on needs.
But again, I made the point. I've said it again. Yeah, I agree, Rodney. He said Revel is going earlier than folks think. I think he is as well. I say this again. The Texans have not drafted outside of CJ Stroud. The Texans have not drafted out of need, and I will stand 10 toes on this. The Texans have not drafted out of need. The Texans have drafted best player available
No, they
outside
did.
of
They drafted Kenyon Green. That was a need.
and I brought up to that point, Swan. You talking about the players that they passed up? They traded back.
No, but they
Good
put it
spots.
back
I
because
feel
they
like
still thought they still
They trade the
knew he was
players
coming.
that hold
No,
on.
no.
The players that everybody is saying that the Texans missed out on, the reason why it was need, and they missed out on the players that they're talking about were taken before Kenyon Green was taken.
Right, and that's how you know they drafted based
They
on need.
traded, but they
Because
traded
one,
back. But Swan,
right,
they traded back before any of those players were taken.
that's what I'm saying is you could have
But you
had.
missing the point, Swan.
No, you missed
They
my point.
traded. No,
If if they
you're
were
missing
taking
the
best
point.
player, if they were taking best player available,
Right.
then you would have drafted Kyle Hamilton,
But
but you
Swan,
didn't.
how can you draft Kyle Hamilton if you never knew if he was going to be there or not?
He was there at 13,
Swan, they made the trade before that.
but they still were in that position.
But you missing the point. How can they know?
Because they
Swan,
had
how can they
because
know?
we needed
How do
a
they
guard.
know? How do
They
they know when they made the trade? How do they know that he's definitely going to be there, not going to be there, or not going to be there? How do
they
they
knew
know
trading
that?
back. He knew trading back to 15, Kenyon was going to be there based on how that board. I mean, how the draft was going at that
He
point.
knew that a player was going to be there. He didn't know who was going to be there.
He
Because
knew. He knew.
what if the Eagles say, instead of taking Jordan Davis, we're gonna take freaking goddamn Kenyon Green?
Well, I mean, they got him
Because that's not
now.
they didn't need to. Their own line was set at that point.
But again, here you go with the need part. Every team doesn't draft for need. They draft the
I know.
best player
I'm
available.
not talking about
And
that. I'm saying this.
like Mike was saying, because this is where we're having the argument and why we keep going back and forth and we're not able to really talk about the players, is because I think your stance is need, and I'm on the stance of that they've been drafting best player available.
No. I
And
say every time.
Mike has said it, and he's 100,000% correct, that teams that are very, very savvy in the draft, when they draft these players, they are drafting the best player available, and it's also so happens that it fits in the needs prospect of their construction as well. So it's just the whole point of and I'm stout on this. And again, Nick Casario doesn't make the moves that he makes in the off season to sit up here and say, I'm going into this draft to draft for a need. I'm not, I think if you would ask Nick Casario this question, and I think he's been asked that before, do you draft for need or do you draft best player available?
I don't know
Nick
any
Casario
GM
had
that
when Nick
says
Casario got here, he
I
said
haven't
he
seen an
has a block of, again, Nick Casario said, I have a block of players that I would take. And then it doesn't have to be the same position. It's a block of play. This is what Nick Casario has said of his logic of thinking.
like I haven't heard him speak.
I'm saying that. Which is what I'm saying is that Nick Casario and his block of players, when you want to bring up Kenyon Green, he could have had Kenyon Green, he could have had Kyle Hamilton, he could have had 3 or 4 other players in that block of players. And it just so happened that Kenyon Green was still available after that he made the trade. The whole point about it is that I think he has a block of players. As he said before, he has a
On
group,
every
not
GM,
I keep saying a block. He has a group of players that he has earmarked for wherever they pick. And if
that's all
whoever is
GMs.
available or whoever is the highest on their
Or
group, they take. And if that's the case, you're taking the best player available. That is my point. Not necessarily, if it happens to fit with need, that is a perfect marriage. That is a blessing in disguise. That is why the Texans have drafted pretty well over the last few years. That's why these picks work out, because you're drafting best player available, but it also fits in with the needs. And
I
hold on.
didn't say that's different.
And Nick said they choose between 4 players that they think. That is the whole point that I'm making, is that when you said that they drafted out of need, I don't think that Kenyon Green was just a need draft pick. Because when you traded back, you didn't know if Kenyon Green was going to be
But
there
you had
or not.
but he was on your list of players of because what's his name? Zion
Okay, so
Johnson
are we
was there.
saying
He was in that. He was in that group before.
He was in a group of
Thank you.
4.
Okay,
So
that's what I'm saying.
again, but that doesn't mean that it was a need. Let's just say
We did have
okay, hold on, Swan. Let's just say if they didn't draft Kenyon Green, are you still saying? Let's say if they drafted another player, are you still saying that that player was drafted for need? Let's say if they drafted
depends
a
on that
wide receiver.
position.
Let's see if they
Depends on the
drafted
position.
whatever. Let's say it was a player that they didn't. This is a position that they didn't need, but it was he was in the group, and he was in their group of players, and they drafted him. are you still saying there's a need? So I think
I understand the
we've
question. I
gotten
understand the question. I think the difference is that if you have an automatic need that everybody sees and knows, and that is where you go and you draft that player, you are feeling the need. Now, just so happens, the players they're available to you, but if that role, unless it's, I feel like this. Let's see, where are we strong at secondary at the moment? Let's say safety. Right now, I think we're strong at safety. Would you agree?
yeah, and if a safety is in Nick Casario's group of
No,
four
no, no. I'm asking,
and
is
they
that a
take
strong
them,
position? I'm
But
just
yes, it's
saying.
a position of strength,
yeah,
DB overall.
Okay.
For sure.
we just said it.
Unless it's the Stark kid, or I can never pronounce the young man's name, but his first name is Eric, from South Carolina.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, if one of them is there at 25 and they take them, that wouldn't surprise me, because I mean that's just truly one of those kind of guys, you do it. But for the most part,
But
I
they
would
drafting out
expect.
of need though.
Hold up. But I'm saying
I
this.
wouldn't be mad, but I would be
I wouldn't
surprised.
be mad, but I would still scratch my head because of other players that you would be reaching on. Because I'm not talking about a reach, but you have true holes. You have a quarterback that doesn't have protection, because the guys you sign, once again, are 1 year guys, and you're hoping that this is going to click. And then if
So
it does, you got to still want to extending them. So to me, that's a need. And there
so
are
so
talented guys that are in that range you can pick. Wide receiver is a need right now, because the true only automatic is Nico. He's the only one that's under contract more than a year. So I would think, based on talent and based on your board, how you're ranking folks, there are guys, let's say four, that is in that range of your O line, wide receiver, and I think we
defensive
need
tackle,
defensive tackle.
linebacker.
So to me, those three, no, those are well. To me, I think you're fine with your linebackers. Uh, your DT, I think you need to add another. I mean, because let's face it, you haven't re-signed Fadakowski.
So
So right now, all you got is one that from last year.
I'm gonna say this because I think that it gets lost, and the reason why I say that, the way Nick Casario operates has to be looked at differently. I look at it like this: if the Texans were to go out and play a playoff game or a game in general, they have a high chance to win that game, or they have a high chance for that game to be super competitive for them to win that game. If they, as the roster is currently constructed, you currently right now, you can sit up here and say, put out there. I know I can put out a starting five offensive line. I can put out there a starting five. I mean, I can put out there two or three starters at wide receiver. I can go out there and say I got a running back. I can go out there and say I got a tight end. I can go out there and say I got a defensive line starters. I can say I got linebackers, and I can say I got a full secondary. And I can
Oh,
go out
I got a
tomorrow.
full defense. I got a full defense right
But
now. I put that
again,
defense out there against anybody.
again,
Offense, uh,
again, I say this right now because you brought in veterans to fill this position. So you're not sitting up here and saying I'm relying on just rookies or second year players. I brought in veterans, regardless of what people think of these guys, and I understand that. And I'm gonna say this point again, like I said the first two times we talked about offensive line, because here we go again, going back to the same shit that I'm not trying to talk about anymore. Is the offensive line. I'm trying to talk defense, and I'm trying to talk, other positions that we could potentially take. When you go back and you look at it right now, and the people that they brought in, you can go out there and work with those guys. You can say what you want to say, but the mentality, and I'm gonna say it again, the mentality of these guys that you brought in are the mentality of guys that are going to work together, and they're not the mentality of guys that are going to work individually. The guys like Laramie Tunsil, Shaq Mason, Kenyon Green, all of these guys played individual football on the offensive line. If you get guys with the mentality of we're going to work together and we're going to work as a unit, as one, I don't care if they're lesser talented, they're going to be decent. I'm not saying that having these guys on your offensive line means that it's the end all be all, but going into the draft, if you were to play a game tomorrow or this Sunday with that offensive line, I can almost guarantee you the shit would not if it was, it would look either the same or a little bit better than what the hell you saw last year. And we
I would
won
hope so.
I ain't no hope. I know. Cause it was terrible last year.
No, I'm saying his thing
It
is,
was terrible last year. And
I
I would
understand that.
say, and I'm saying this, that because it was so bad, I honestly believe that you are not going to get worse than what you had last year. And because of that, we won 11, what was it, 11 games last year? We won
10,
11. We won
10,
11. Then how many did we win, Swan?
10 regular season games and one playoff game. So
We
if you're
won
trying to
11.
say
How
that,
many games did we win total, Swan?
okay, never mind.
Yeah,
Continue.
we won, and that's my point, is that we won 11 games last year with a putrid offensive line. So you can't sit up here and tell me that if we go out there with Christian Kirk, Nico Collins, Joe Mixon, CJ Stroud on offense, and the defense pretty much everybody back, plus CJ Gardner Johnson Jr., you can't sit up here and tell me that we don't have a high potential to win a game or a playoff game. So,
I, I feel like we can win a play. I mean, that first game, I'm always confident we can win.
right, and that goes to my overall point about what Nick Caserio does pre-draft. He does this so that you don't. So if you can go out there and say I can win a game or even win a playoff game with the roster currently constructed, why do I need to go into the draft saying draft for need?
Because my head coach says that's just not good enough. Yes, do I think you currently right now as this team is constructed, defense wise, I have no doubts about because that side of the ball is stable and they high perform. It is the offensive side. I don't know, based on how it's constructed, if that is enough to beat the Ravens or the Chiefs in a divisional round game right now because I haven't seen with that O line. I would like to believe I'm going to get better play than what I got last year. I feel a little bit more confident with a different scheme and better coaching and everything. And like you said, having everybody working together, it should be better. But I don't know for sure because that has been 2 years in a row where we have fallen short at on the offensive side, whether that is due to injuries or performance, that is what has hurt us. So you
But
do
again,
need to improve because there's only one guy.
but
Well,
again, I will say this to your point of we don't know. You don't know about the draft either. Because if you can say I'm going to improve by drafting this player and it doesn't happen. You brought up Kenyon Green. We said draft
no,
not
you
a
said
lot.
you was giving. I only brought up Kenya because you say it's only one player that he
Yes,
drafted out of need. And
right,
I was just saying I
right,
was more than one, but that's just my
right. I'm going back. I'm circling to the point about Kenyon Green is that Kenyon Green was considered an upgrade because what the hell did we have before Kenyon Green? That year before Kenyon Green was it was the worst, probably the worst offensive line play we've ever seen. We thought this year was bad. That year was ass cheeks premium.
right.
I
And
Here's
got a
the
so,
workout invite.
Here's the thing. You
so
went
hold
from
on.
hold on. You went from
So
runny to dry. That's it. I mean,
so
but
but again, you stop the flood. So again, the whole point is Kenyon, when you draft Kenyon Green, the overall sentiment is that he's going to upgrade
right.
and be better. Kenyon Green was not that. So again, if you go in and say, I'm going to draft whoever and they're going to be an upgrade because you don't know. That's my point, is that the same way you don't know what you have right now, you don't know what you're going to get from whoever you draft. It doesn't
Oh no,
matter.
I mean you don't
We
know.
didn't know. We
Okay, that's
didn't know.
anybody.
We hoped that CJ Stroud and Will Anderson were going to be game changers and franchise movers. We absolutely know that?
I mean,
No.
nobody knows 100% no matter what you do when you
Anything.
draft.
So
But
it so
based
that goes
but
to the
based on
point
their
of,
traits and what they've done in
but
school, you
again,
can't.
but again, you can have a lot of traits. You can have a lot of accolades, and you can get to the NFL and not play and not be a good, average, great player. Any one of those things, you can be below all of that, but have the traits, have the whatever, and a lot of things can happen to cause that. Injuries, skiing, all of these things play a
Coaching, yeah.
factor as well. Just because you have a player and you draft a player that has the traits and the accolades does not necessarily mean that they're just going to be an automatic fit. And you hope that they fit, but
Of
sometimes they
course.
just don't, and it doesn't work out. So my thing is that nobody, the same logic you're using about I don't know what I have, you don't know what you're going to get as well. So that's my whole point of all of it, is that I understand what you're saying, but I'm saying you got to take a step back a little bit and just do an overall of everything. Again, defensively, I think guys like Derek Harmon, I was going to bring him up. Walter Nolan, who may slide to the second round. Edges, you know, Shamar Stewart was not talked about.
Oh hell no.
I'm not, and listen to me, I'm not saying the Texans drafted him. I'm using him as an
No, I'm
example.
saying is why would you look at an edge in the first or the second round?
I'm not talking about the Texans. I'm talking about in general. I'm talking about, when I was talking about players that slide, I was using Jamar Stewart as a player that rolls. No, Walter Nolan is a player that's potentially sliding to the second round. When the pre-draft process first started, he was talked about as either a top 10, top 15 pick. Now there's
Hmm.
talk that he may slide to the second round. And then I
Yes.
was using the reverse logic of, and I wasn't necessarily speaking about the Texans. I was speaking in general when it comes to defensive players. You have a guy like Shamar Stewart. Before the pre-draft process started, nobody was talking about. He goes to the Senior Bowl, acts a fool. Now he's literally a lock, almost a lock for the first round. And some people had him in as high as a top 10 pick. So it's just the point of defensive players, it may vary, but you also, as the Texans organization, you have to keep your eyes open, and you can't just negate it that we don't take a defensive player. People have been clamoring for a defensive tackle for the Houston Texans for the last 4 years. They've wanted the Houston Texans to take a defensive tackle in the first or second round for the last 4 years, and they have not done so. Now you have an opportunity to take one in the first and second round, and people are like, "Hell no, don't. I don't want to take a defensive tackle that early." And this, and that, and it's just ironic to me that something that the fan base and and people, would say that the organization should do or have been clamoring for. Now it's the opposite that
Well,
we
one,
get.
I'm fine with defensive tackle, uh, first round if one of those kind of guys fall minus uh the Stewart kid. Other than that, I'm
Well,
fine with
he's
it. But
not.
I
He's
think the
not.
reason
He's not a
no,
defensive tackle. So I'm not even
no,
talking
no,
about him.
no. I'm giving an example. I'm saying this. I'm fine if they went defensive tackle and with the 25th. Would I have a preference that they go O line or wide receiver?
Mhm.
Yes, but I'm okay. Those three positions, and I've played around with it in my mocks of doing. any one of those three, I spend more time actually trading back and getting an
Hmm.
extra pick here in the
I'll
third
tell
or the
you
fourth.
about that next
But
episode too about
yeah,
trading back.
right. But just
And
to say that I've put that out there, not that automatically we're going to stay at 25. Right now, everybody has their picks, which is the first time I think they said in several years, I think about 7, 8 years, that every team has all of their first round pick. So somebody's
Mhm.
going to trade back. I wouldn't be surprised if we do. But I think the reason why we have fans that don't want them to do it now is because we have a need, and regardless of how you see it, we do have need at wide receiver and at O line. So in their mind, not just one position group that is a need. You have two that are needs. So they would
So,
prefer if you fix the need because we trust D'Amico. It's like, okay, whoever you give
so
him, he's gonna make it shake. So
right.
he seems to
So
make that work.
this is the thing also is that you saying there's needs, and we just talked about them the last 3 weeks about offensive line and wide receiver. There are players that are going to be available that are going to be, I wouldn't say, I don't think there's legit superstars at the wide receiver position.
Their starters are day
And,
one starters.
but that was the point I was trying to make. So I don't think there's superstars at this position. I remember us picking 7, 8 years ago around the same range when Andre Johnson was nearing the end of his career, and we took a guy and he ended up being a superstar in DeAndre Hopkins. I don't think you have that type of talent at the wide receiver position this year. I think it's muddied. Whereas you're saying you can get starters, I think their starters can be had at the wide receiver position later on in this draft. And when I say starters, we're talking about wide receiver 3 for this team.
And see, I'm not
And
looking at I'm looking at wide receiver too.
well, that's the thing, Swan. I don't think anybody you draft is going to be better than what Christian Kirk is right now, currently.
Oh,
I don't think anybody that you draft, there's nobody in this draft at the
but
wide.
not.
And we keep going back to this, and I keep letting you drag me into this shit, and I'm not gonna do it. I'm no Christian Kirk is wide receiver 2. Again, I can see them taking corner. I wouldn't, you know what? A wild card, and I shout out to Tony because he's been talking about this guy for a while. Jahad Campbell
Mm-hmm.
from
Bama.
Alabama. If he falls, I can see Nick Casario doing one of them spread leg poses at the draft table, picking up their phone and calling Jahad Campbell from Alabama.
Man,
That would look. It's not out of the realm of possibility, but there are a lot of defensive prospects, and we do need to I think we'll do that more. We'll go into more depth because we kind of got stuck on Jalen Petrie for 40 minutes. But I think there is more to talk about prospects that could fall defensively, as well as prospects that will be available later on in the draft that defensive wise could possibly be picked. Another Shamar that was talked about on Twitter between Aaron Wilson and other prospects was the Shamar Turner, the defensive tackle from A&M, and surprise, surprise, I'm okay with the Texans not taking Shamar Turner. I would prefer that they don't take Shamar Turner. And there's a lot of reasons for that, but he's a guy that the Texans have been looking at. That they visited him, I think at the Senior Bowl. They also met with him at the Combine, and they had a visit with him as well. So it's a lot of smoke behind that, and there's certain players like that as well. But again, what about the late round corners? What about the mid to late round corners? What about the mid to late round linebackers that are possibly available? And I do want us as a podcast to really take a step back and look in depth at those guys as well. But again, I wanted to talk about tight ends. I wanted to talk about running backs, but we may have to pause and take that again because Quinshawn Judkins, Caleb Johnson, um, Tootin
Yeah.
from Virginia Tech. Um, there's the running just as much as again, we're not looking for a bona fide starter. We're looking for a depth at the running back position because I can almost bet that
Change of
as a
pace.
well, honestly, if the Texans were to take Amarion Hampton, I would be just as fine because he's not changing pace. He's basically the same thing as Joe Mixon. If I can have two Joe
If
Mixons,
you hold on, if you
if
take
I
a
can have two Joe
Ariana,
Mixons, I don't give a damn what you say. Give me
no,
two Joe Mixons. Uh,
if you're getting Amarion, then you're basically saying you got to he's your running back one because he's anticipated going in the first round. So if you're taking a running back,
eh,
uh,
ain't nobody. I don't care who you take in the like. Just because you were taken there doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be guaranteed number one running back. And when you say that, it comes off to most people that's listening when you're basically saying if we draft a Marion Hampton at 25, if he's there, and basically saying, well, Joe Mixon now is running back too.
basically,
And
you're basically doing that because you drafted or
no,
drafted. Sorry. Okay, never mind. Okay.
when we drafted DeAndre Hopkins, was he wide receiver number one? When we drafted DeAndre Hopkins, was he wide receiver number one? When we drafted Will Fuller, was he wide receiver number one? That's the scenario that you're in with drafting Hampton and Mixon. That's literally the scenario. So I would say because again, you drafting Hampton to be your running back one of the future, yes. One running back one coming into next year, no. I don't think any of these running backs are gonna be running back one. I don't even think Genty is a running back one wherever he goes.
You mean day one, or you mean?
Yeah, I mean
There's
day
no
one.
way. Week
Okay.
one. I'm sorry. You draft Genty. He's week one starter.
Yeah, I
I'm
did.
sorry. You
There you
don't take a
go.
running back in the first round and say, "Oh, well, that's for the future," but he's not going to be. Yeah, okay. When you know you have true needs in other positions on offense, but hey, that's
Yeah.
just me.
So there are guys as well at the tight end position. Arroyo that we've met with, Elijah Arroyo from Miami.
Mhm.
Um, you have guys like Mason Taylor that Swan loves. I hate the white guys that just any Bishop loves white tight ends.
No, no,
Shout out
no. See,
Bishop.
I know I like Mason because actually all the tight ends that I like because they're good.
Oh,
No,
So
you missing you couldn't even let me get the joke off, Swan.
hold on.
I'm
What is Tony
sorry.
like?
Damn. So when I was trying to get a joke off, couldn't even let me get the joke off. Again, even Terrence Ferguson.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Terrence Ferguson sounds like a straight up black man. You gonna pull that picture up? That is a Wahite. That is a white man. Again, Mason Taylor. I just feel like the fans, as much as they hate Dalton Schultz, they are the players that they're saying I want to replace Dalton Schultz with. For me, are very similar or in the same realm of Dalton Schultz.
Nope.
And people can disagree, we can agree to disagree, but ain't no way in hell that you saying Mason Taylor, Gunnar Ham, Terrence Ferguson. Terrence Ferguson may be a little bit more athletic, but outside of that, a lot of bit, but outside of that, to me, they white tight ends and they Dalton
You don't
Schultz.
think Elijah is more athletic than?
He's not white.
Here's my thing. This is
He's
more
not
black and
white.
white. The thing is, the one thing we
Remember,
complain
I'm
about,
racist, Mike. I'm racist,
yeah,
even though black people can't be racist, but I'm racist.
but I'll say it this way: the biggest knock that folks have with uh, Dalton Schultz is the laziness that he had this past season. That was the biggest thing. That's an effort thing. So I
Mhm.
don't care how talented you may be. If you're not giving me that, then I might as well go with a rookie with upside that's gonna give me the effort. So to me, off the top, pretty much all the all the tight ends that are in the top five, the guys that are ranked in that top five range as far in that position group, I would take over Dalton Schultz.
So this
So
is the
that's that.
thing.
So that's my big.
What if Dalton Schultz come back this year and he gives effort blocking?
Okay. It'll be the first time in
Oh,
his career,
are
but
we? Are we?
we'll see.
What if Nick Caley was the one? He was the 1-1.
Is the tight end whisper?
Is the tight end whisperer that got Dalton Schultz to block?
Hey, that'd be great. But right now,
And I think,
odds are,
yeah, I'm gonna say this, and I know a lot of people hate Dalton Schultz, but I
I don't hate
honestly
it.
think no. I
I,
said
I just don't like
I didn't say,
laziness.
but I
You
did say
didn't say you hated him. You said a
Oh,
a
lot.
okay.
lot of people. So throw a rock. But it's just the whole point, and I said a lot of people hate Dalton Schultz so much, but also the fact I think that if Nick Caley was not a tight ends coach, I don't think I feel like there's a lot of desperation in certain fans that I've seen because this is one specific fan that just loves them some Loveland from Michigan. I
Yeah.
think it's
Yes, I'm one of them.
I think it's Mr. Optimistic. It's been
Uh,
posting a lot about Colston Loveland. And again, if Nick Caley wasn't a tight end coach, let's say Nick Caley was an offensive line coach.
been
And
better, but
exactly, if he was offensive line coach and was the OC, are we talking about the Texans just definitely drafting tight ends?
I think we would take one eventually. But do I
But
think it'd be a top priority? No.
not high like
Right.
people are saying. People are saying first, second round, third round, take a
Yep,
tight end. I think
yep.
the point I'm trying to make is that if Nick Caley was a different position coach,
Mm-hmm.
I think people would say yes, you still need to draft a tight end, but a lot of people would say, well, you can draft one in the sixth, you can draft one in the fifth, you can draft one in the seventh, one of those 2 7-round picks, and I'll be happy with that. And people be looking at guys that late in the draft rather than looking so early. And again, if Colston Loveland is a guaranteed first round pick, he's not making it past the Chargers.
Right. Because
He's not making
Michigan,
it
I
past
said,
the
oh yeah,
Chargers. So I
I
wouldn't
take this.
even. So
Eh,
who's the head coach in LA?
he
Oh
might
no,
take
he's
another
gonna take
offensive
it.
lineman. That's what I'm saying.
No, he's gonna take. I mean,
I'll take a
what?
Michigan guy, man.
Yeah,
But again, that's just speculation. Nobody knows nothing.
Yeah, that's what they said about Blake Corum last year, and he passed. So
yeah.
Blake
He
Corum,
knew.
he
Yeah,
knew
but
Blake Corum was doo doo.
yeah,
But again, we have to do some more talking about these players, and I'm pretty sure we'll do it on our next episode when we talk about the draft. In general, we'll do a mock draft the week before the draft as well. But we do have to really, really harp on the defensive side of the football because I don't think there is a world in this draft, regardless of how many picks. If we draft 9 players, we drafting 3 defensive players or 4. And you can make that face, Mike, all you want. It's
if
gonna
you're
piss
sitting at
people off.
3.5, I'm taking the under. If you're sitting at 2.5, I'm going.
like I said, I can see
You might
3.
take
I
that.
just don't see 3. Here's the thing: I see 2. It depends on how many picks that he trades back for, because he can turn it and make it into that.
That's a whole
If
nother
we
thing
want,
we gotta
if
talk
we
about.
wind up with anywhere about 7 or 8 picks, then I see 3 defensive guys. If we're at that 6 range where between him trading up and trading back and all that, then I see only 2, because I think you could easily see 2 to 3 on the O line, minimum 2. I expect 3 possibly. And then you got your wide receiver. I think he's going to get another running back, and I think he's going to get another tight end.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like
So
I said, right now you only got one guy coming back next year. That's truly no reason to think Stover is not coming back next year, and everybody else is up in the air.
Yeah. With that being said, because we got to talk about the trading back, because it's easy to say trade back, trade back, trade back, and when we doing these mock drafts, it looks real convenient.
What is here's the thing is, I think the domino is what will the Browns do if the Browns take what?
Shout out Killer Cow.
All right.
um,
Hey,
yeah,
Killer Cow, how you doing?
What's up, Killer Cow?
yeah, I don't get no love. Shout out Killer Cow. Just had a birthday. He just turned
I,
75 years old. Um,
happy birthday, but not on the 75, but happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
I think Browns will dictate a little bit of that. Do they go do a Carter or Travis Hunter, or do they go ahead and take Shadur? If they take a quarterback, then that kind of the trading back may not be as fruitful as we would hope. But if they don't take them, and then when you get to the Raiders, I think they're at number 6, if I'm not mistaken. Let's say they don't take a quarterback, because they could turn around and do like what Atlanta did last year. Just because you sign one, extended one, don't mean that you don't still take one. Say they pass him up. I think the next team is going to be like the Steelers. Okay, let's say the Steelers don't take a quarterback. Now I think at that point you may be looking at trading back because somebody um, may want to trade back up in the first
it
round
all
and get
it
that
all depends on.
fifth,
I
fifth
think
year option.
I think it all depends on what quarterback. And I think if Shadur is there, there is a possibility, but I don't think any team
Jackson Dart as well. I think a
again,
team will do it
I think a team if Jackson Dart is there
in the 20s.
in at 25 or whatever, I don't think that teams would be I think teams would be more patient to let them fall because I'm gonna say this now. There are teams that are saying I know it's crazy now, but there are teams that are saying I'm more in love with Jalen Milroe than I am Jackson Dart. And we probably don't see it, but there's
No,
talk
I see
and
it.
there's talk about it. And if that's the case, teams are saying, well, if I value Jalen Milroe over Jackson Dart, I'm not going to trade up. If Jackson Dart falls to me in the second round, he falls to me. I will
I,
trade up in the second round, but I'm not going to trade up in
I
the
can
first
see a
to the
team
first
doing
round.
it because most teams
Want to get that 5th year
want
option, but
Well,
exactly.
we thought teams was going to trade up for Will Levis in the first
No,
round.
okay.
Swan,
Personally, hold up.
for going, we cannot have
No,
revisionist history
no. Hold up.
because
No,
at the
no. I'm saying
time
when he. No, I'm saying when he no, I'm not talking about the. Once he fell out of the top 10, and because at that point you
we
knew
still, but Swan, that's the point I'm trying to make. There's after Cam Ward, every other, even Shadur, if Shadur is not taken, then every other quarterback is the Will Levis.
no
And
no
the
difference.
reason why, and I'm not, and I gotta clarify this. I'm not saying they're Will Levis talent or they're going to be the type of player Will Levis is. I'm saying the scenario that Will Levis fail can
But there's a
happen.
but there's a reason why he failed that had nothing to do with talent, and that was reported throughout the draft by Jeremiah and all of those guys. Was that it was the attitude issue folks had
So
with
what are
him.
they? So what are they
I'm
talking
not hearing
about?
that about Jackson Dart. I'm
What are
not
they
hearing no
talking
talk.
about? What are they talking about? Shadur.
No. I'm saying
There
as far as
again,
trading
I'm
up.
telling you this right. The reason why I'm saying this is that I can put money on it that
Okay.
no other quarter outside of Cam Ward, Shadur is not getting. No other quarterback is getting drafted before Shadur at the quarterback position. So again, if Shadur falls to the second round, that means Jackson Dart is falling to the second round and Jalen Milroe is falling to the second round. If
Mm,
nobody is willing to trade up or take Shadur Sanders in the first round, Jackson Dart and Jalen Milroe, Quinn Ewers, all these other quarterbacks are going to get taken second and beyond.
I could see a team actually
The
trading up.
Saints, what's his name?
Kuiper.
Mel Kiper had the Saints taking Shadur.
Yeah, I can see
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, and they're picking what 10, 12, something like that, right?
9.
Again,
9, yeah.
at Saints, the Saints at 9. Saints are picking 9.
Okay.
And you, like you said, the Raiders are picking what, 7?
6.
6.
So you have the Raiders at 6. You had we saying Shadur. We don't know. First of all, we don't even know if the Giants could do something and take Shadur as well.
I mean, if the
And
Browns don't
so
take him, then they'll take him. But I'm just saying that's why I
and,
said the Browns are going to
and
start it off.
so again, I think the determining factor is what does Pittsburgh do at 21?
And they
Does
might
Pittsburgh?
want to trade up.
I just don't think that these teams value Milroe and Dart as high. And I understand the 5th-year option aspect of it, but again, I don't think that teams are willing to trade the capital because again, you're talking about us at 25.
It's not going to happen with us, by
Right.
the way.
No.
And that's the point I'm trying to make
do-
is that, but Swan, you're talking about teams trading 10 plus spots up.
They
Or
would
more.
just trade with the Chiefs or the Eagles or the Bills. They have no incentive unless they felt truly that the Rams were going to do it. And everything I hear from the Rams, they're not going to take a quarterback at 26. So
like everybody tells you what they're going
team
to do.
like Cleveland or the Giants has incentive to move all the way up to 25. They just go to the 30s.
Right. So, and then again, even if the Rams do take Dart, let's say the Steelers don't take quarterback. Let's say the Steelers pass. And then let's say the Rams do take Dart at 26. Again, I just stated that teams are favoring Milroe over Dart. So it's just the point of teams are saying, I don't have that fondness of Jackson Dart to trade 2 seconds and a third or wherever, or 2 seconds and a fourth, or whatever the capital it may take to jump 10 to 15 spots for a quarterback that I don't necessarily say is going to be my franchise. Like, that's the point that I think Mike was making and I'm making, is that Jalen Milroe, Jackson Dart, there's already people saying they don't really believe or know that Cam Ward and Shadur Sanders are franchise quarterbacks. It was I don't forgot who said it today, was saying that Shadur is Teddy Bridgewater.
Whoa.
Right.
A borderline.
I haven't heard anybody
that
say
literally
Cam.
came out
I ain't heard
today.
nobody say Cam. They don't think it's going to be. I know there are doubts about Shador, but
No,
Cam.
there are doubts about Cam, and the only reason why there's limited doubts about Cam because he's the best quarterback in this draft.
Yeah.
And the Titans need a quarterback.
Right.
He's going to 98% sure he's going to go to the Tennessee Titans. Again, if Cam Ward was in any other draft, and this is how I base it, if Cam Ward was in the CJ Stroud, Anthony Richardson draft, and Bryce Young draft, Cam Ward is probably going after Will Levis.
No,
I think it goes before Levis.
No, he goes. Actually, I think he may go before AR. I think he goes before AR.
I think he's QB3.
I do, but that's just me.
But
because again, he can pass. He's accurate, and he's athletic.
So I got to look at it like this. We got to take a step back because, again, we're looking at it as if what we know now. We know that Will Levis, and we going on damn near 2 hours.
There are articles out there. I was very low on Will Levis.
I know you were, but I'm saying there's
high on Will Levis.
Swan, they was talking about Will. First of all, they were saying the Texans were gonna take Will Levis.
Oh yeah.
No, hold up. No, we had certain folks that threw that out there because they could.
And they were saying, well, if we don't take Will Levis at 2, we gonna take him at what was it, 11 or 13, whatever
No,
that pick was.
12,
they
yeah.
said we
12.
was taking right. They said we was gonna take Will
Yeah,
Anderson, and we was gonna
and take
one was
Will
Will
Levis.
Anderson and Will Levis, and then there was one
Yeah,
who was gonna take Will Levis, and we was gonna
right,
take Tyree Wilson. What I'm
right.
saying is,
So
but
it's
those
the
are folks that were guessing because they made assumptions because D'Amico was a defensive minded quote unquote head coach, obviously because he couldn't get what's his
but
name
I
Bryce.
mean, right,
That
but
was assumptions.
that's the whole point. But the whole point, because we getting into the weeds and we going down a whole
A lot of
scenario that I
context.
really didn't want us to go down. But it's just the whole point that I don't think that Cam Ward would be high in other drafts.
Yeah.
And that's the point I was trying to make, is that I think that a lot of these other quarterbacks, hell, look at last year's quarterback draft. How many quarterbacks were drafted in the first round?
Was it 5 or 6?
It was like 5 or 6. Cam Ward is a second round pick.
Yeah,
Yeah.
at best, he's late first round.
Yeah, I could say.
He's a second.
I can see late
He's a
first.
second round. He's not the number 1 overall pick.
Well, no, but I still think
But
he's going in the first
that's the
round.
point. But that's the whole point I'm trying to make, is that if you're saying, even if you're saying he's a bottom of the first round pick, early second round pick guy last year, you're saying that there were 4 or 5 quarterbacks better than him last year. So to say he's and looking at some of these guys, nobody knows if JJ McCarthy is a franchise quarterback. He was drafted. Nobody knows if Michael Penix is the franchise guy in Atlanta. Nobody knows these type of things. And again, it goes to the point. No, in this draft, which people are saying are rating this considerably worse than it was last year and years before, nobody's sitting up here saying Cam Ward is
Thank
the
you,
guy.
Brandon. I am glad of that too.
Yeah. Casario's smarter than all of us that he traded for Stephon Diggs and traded the
That's not what
contract.
that says.
That's brilliant. And Cam Ward will be in a better situation. This is silly season. Sanders, I understand that. Cal, I'm not saying Shador isn't a good guy, isn't a good quarterback. I think Shador is going to do very well in the NFL, because if he goes to a team that has bad O-line problems, guess what? He's been playing behind a bad O-line his whole life. So like, this is nothing new. And
These guys, I mean, gonna be
Cam,
moving. Hold up, they gonna be moving a lot faster than they in the NFL than they did in college. And this
I
competition level is
understand that,
different.
son, but pressure is pressure.
No, it
Plant,
matters
plant,
because he's not
plant.
athletic like that.
So
Unlike
you're missing
Cam.
my point when it comes to, and I understand he's not athletic and he doesn't move around the pocket. He's not Caleb Williams. I understand that. It's the point about it is that the question is not, can he escape the pressure? The question is, can he make the throw with pressure in his face? And that's the point I'm making. As a quarterback, to me, that's more important than saying, if I have a quarterback that can make the throw with pressure in his face, rather than, oh, he has to escape, he has to have a clean pocket to make the throw. Give me the quarterback that can make it with pressure in your face, because 9 times out of 10, you're going to have a lot of plays with pressure in your face. That's the point about that Cal was saying. That's the point I'm talking about with Shador. I understand there's a different level when it comes to pressure and quickness and all of that stuff. The point is, Shador has proven that he can make the throw regardless if the pressure is in his face. Shador's knock is that he holds on to the ball too long. That's his problem. But can he make the throws? Yes. That shouldn't be a knock on him. Can he do it with pressure in his face? Yes. That should not be a knock on Shador Sanders. That is like, and it can get there quick, it can get there late. I don't know if you was watching Colorado offensive line that first year. I don't give a damn how fast they are in the NFL. Them motherfuckers was coming just as fast that first year in Colorado, and he still had a high completion percentage and was still making the throws. So it's the point of, I think he's more prepared than Cam Ward.
Then why is he number one then?
Because Cam Ward is beloved by what he can do as far as flick of the wrist. That's the difference. Is people Cam Ward is not more athletic than Shedeur Sanders.
Oh,
If
he absolutely is.
if Cam Ward is more athletic than Shedeur Sanders, it's a super
No,
tiny
it's
margin.
not. It ain't.
I
No,
have
it's not
seen
close.
both of
I've
them
watched
play.
both of them. No, they're not.
Cam Ward is the way people are talking about it. People are talking about it like Cam Ward is goddamn Lamar Jackson.
Oh, he is.
Hell the fuck
No,
no, he ain't.
no,
You know
no, no,
that shit.
no. I more so he's more close to the folks want to make him more close to JD5 than they are per se Lamar.
Hell
Yeah,
no.
he's not that either.
He's
But
not
No,
even
no,
closer to that.
no. What I'm saying is that's the combo
But
is.
he's
Now
not
he's
even
more
in that
closer.
combo, Swan, is what I'm saying. Cam Ward is stiff.
No, he's not.
Cam Ward is elusive. Cam Ward is not athletic. Once again, neither one of them ran the 40. So I really wanted them to run the 40 because I didn't want to see what Cam Ward 40 was and what Shedeur Sanders 40 was. And if Shedeur Sanders 40 was faster than Cam Ward, I guarantee you that would have knocked Cam Ward out of the number one spot. But
No.
again, I don't believe, and that's just me personally, I don't believe that Cam Ward is athletic. I think, and the reason why I'm saying this, I think that Shedeur Sanders is more athletic than what people give him credit for.
He hadn't shown that. And
So,
I watched him. The dude is not. I mean, hold on. You must be mixing his brother up. Shiloh. No. Shiloh is the one that's athletic. Shiloh is the one that.
Again, Shedeur is mindset playing the quarterback position is not to run the football.
No, I'm saying
The same knocks and same things that people were giving, and I'm not. Let me say this: Shedeur Sanders is nowhere near C.J. Stroud, not in the stratosphere of C.J. Stroud. But the knock on C.J. Stroud was before the Georgia game is that he can't move in the pocket and he can't run and he can't do. And they're saying the same thing about Shedeur. When Shedeur's problem, and I just said it, is that he holds on to the ball too long.
But he still hasn't proven his thing is. But didn't folks say with CJ? But I'm asking, did folks not say which CJ will you see in the next level? Will we get Georgia's CJ, or are we gonna get the regular CJ you saw with Ohio State during the regular season? You haven't seen a Shedeur moment where you can sit back and say, "Oh, okay, he can do that." Now, which one you're going to get? That's the reason why Cam Ward is number one, because you know Cam Ward can do both.
Cam Ward,
he did it both at Miami.
Cam Ward to me is going to be a good quarterback. Cam Ward is not a franchise-altering quarterback, and
I don't know.
Definitely not in Tennessee.
Well,
again, he's going to Tennessee. Cam Ward is not a franchise-altering quarterback for that point alone.
That's what I'm saying.
And it can have nothing to do with Cam Ward, the player.
That's what I'm saying.
It can be talent-wise, Cam Ward. If you look at the last quarterbacks that were drafted the last 4 or 5 years, talent-wise, I don't think he is top 10. I don't think he's top 10 of quarterbacks drafted talent-wise the last 4 or 5 years. Go back and look at it and come back to me.
No,
but
I'm good.
Again, it's just the whole point. With that being said, Cam Ward will probably have a good average career. And unless he gets out of Tennessee, he will be a good average quarterback. Again, Trevor Lawrence was drafted number 1 overall. Trevor Lawrence was supposed to be generational. Trevor Lawrence is a good quarterback. Trevor Lawrence isn't franchise altering for the Jacksonville Jaguars. If the Jacksonville Jaguars were to release Trevor Lawrence or trade Trevor Lawrence and draft another quarterback, they would be in the same boat that they currently are in.
Yeah, but I thought you said he was a franchise alternate quarterback. I'm sorry.
I said
I
he
don't.
was. He's not.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say,
No, I said that again because we're gonna close out. I said that Trevor Lawrence was drafted number 1 overall as a franchise generational altering quarterback,
uh-huh.
and he's not.
Nope.
That goes to my point about Cam Ward. Just because you're taking number 1 overall, and I hate to shit on Cam Ward because I like him as a player, but just because you're drafted number 1 overall doesn't make you a franchise altering quarterback. I think if Tennessee did not need a quarterback, because let's be honest, there were conversations before recently that Tennessee was going to take Abdul Carter. Before the foot injury, if Abdul Carter, I believe this, if Abdul Carter didn't have that foot injury and all of that noise about Abdul Carter and his size and whoop,
They still taking a quarterback.
they either that or they were going to trade out of that pick.
They
And I
fan
think
base they can't afford not to. They are getting ready to for
so.
that stadium and everything. They're
All right.
they're
So
kind of like forced
let's
to kind of do it.
but let's say they take Cam Ward and he flames out like Will Levis now, and you picking number 1 again or number 2 again, and it's another batch of quarterbacks. Or let's say 2 years from now, just like Will Levis got 2 years, Cam Ward get 2 years, and it's the same scenario. They fired
Gotta
another
swing.
coach.
Yep.
They
But you
fired
gotta
another
keep
coach.
swinging. But you gotta keep swinging.
We
Because if
didn't.
you can't, huh?
We didn't. And we got our quarterback the first time. We got it right. And if you want to be real about it, we got it right the time before.
Mm-hmm.
No, that's what I'm saying is if you, I
And
mean,
you
if it
don't the
hits,
Texans. So just because a franchise misses out on a quarterback, it does not necessarily mean you have to keep swinging.
yes,
You
you
have
do.
to
If you want to, if you're gonna put ass in the seat, you do.
you have to be patient because again, your teams. If you got a fan base, they're gonna ride for you regardless.
Okay. Here's the thing is,
So
you
what you
can't
saying?
keep
So
having.
what you're saying is that if Jacksonville didn't take Trevor Lawrence, Jacksonville wouldn't have any fans.
They would have moved by now.
So
Yeah,
if
yeah.
you saying
If they had taken, if they had taken,
If
go
Tennessee
ahead.
doesn't take a quarterback, are you saying that Tennessee Titans fans are no longer going to be Tennessee Titans fans?
I think it hurts. As far as here's the, are they still fans? Because let's face it, we went through that where you couldn't put folks inside that damn stadium. Now, are
COVID.
you still saying you're a fan?
For a couple of years.
Yes. Are you showing up? That's a whole different thing.
Let
That's
me
what
say
I'm
this
talking about.
too, Swan, because you talking about putting ass in the seats. Let us not forget we hit a little thing called COVID during our time with not putting ass in the seats that contributed. I'm not saying that was the sole reason, but it greatly contributed to why we didn't have as many
No,
asses
we
in the
didn't.
seats.
No, we didn't. I'm
I
not
understand,
gonna sit down.
Swan, you had that stadium full when we was going 2-13 or 2-14. When we
You mean
was
the shit?
picking
No,
number,
you
we
hold
picked
on. No,
number
no.
one
You talk.
3 times, and
Okay,
all
I'm
three
talking about
times we
that.
picked
No, I'm talking
Swan.
about
We picked
after, not then.
Swan.
That was a different
Swan,
era.
but Swan, it does the
It
sentiment
does
is the
matter.
sentiment. No, but okay, I'm not arguing about it because we're about to end this episode. We will talk about it on another time again. I appreciate everybody for joining in. Killer Cal, I see you, man. We can talk about that on another time about the Shador and all those other quarterbacks. But again, the banter is the banter. We're here. We will see y'all next week on Tuesday. Next week. We'll be back on Tuesday next week. Well, we'll do a mock draft and we'll talk more about the draft and other positions. And maybe Jules can come in and referee a little bit of me and Swan going back and forth.
Yeah, because
Um,
Mike ain't no help.
um, but I appreciate everybody that stuck with us for these 2 hours. Definitely was not planning on being in 2 hours. I should have been in the
It was not.
But I appreciate y'all all for joining us and enjoying the podcast and sticking with us. And we will see y'all when we see y'all on the next episode. Peace.
Peace.